How's it going, people? Salmon Slappy here, and this is Runescape lore. And today we're going to be looking at General Khazard. Now, General Khazard is affiliated with Zamorak. He's a Zamarakian Majara, and during his time since he has been born, he went under the tutelage of another Majara by the name of Azil, which was covered in the last episode. And it was under his tutelage that he gained his powers and eventually stood side by side with Azil and pretty much conquered the Kandarin region. Between the two of them, they reigned supreme for quite a lengthy amount of time. Now, Kazad himself is the youngest of the Majara. In fact, he was actually born towards the end of the God Wars, so he's, as far as we know, incredibly young compared to the other Majara. Additionally, he's actually focused and kind of shown in a few quests, unlike most of the Majara. You can see him within the Ritual of Majara, obviously, as well as the Fight Arena quest, and he also appears again within a mini-quest, the name of the General Shadow, when you go about collecting the Ghost Gear. But let's get into a little bit of General Khazard. What's he like? What kind of person is he? Well, Kazad himself, to this day, still rules his settlement in the mid-rift of Kandarin, and it's pretty militaristic. It's all around the Kazad fight area, which at the moment is still at war with the Tree Gnome village. Also, the nearby seaport which supplies the arena is also named after General Khazard. These settlements have been in an operation for many years now. Additionally, which you may not actually know, is that General Khazard does have some small influence within the Shadow Realm, as at the end of the fight arena he's actually able to send himself to the Shadow Realm as well as scouts to spy on the humans and the stronghold. Although his abilities within the Shadow Realm don't really compare at all with freneskae's mastery. So all in all, General Khazard, he's quite impressive. He's the youngest Majara of the lot. Together, working with Azil, they actually conquered an entire territory and held it for a length of time. Khazard actually has held his land until today. Well, and ongoing actually. And he's also got some nice little abilities, as he's actually able to enter the Shadow Realm and kind of manipulate it slightly, although it doesn't compare to freneskae's, for example, but still, for a young Majara, he's pretty powerful. But let's go back to the beginning, since his childhood then. Well, Kazad was born towards the end of the Third Age and the beginning of the Fourth, and it was between two Zamarakian Majara. His mother went by the name of Palkira. We don't actually know an incredible amount of information on Palkira. Additionally, it's said that his father was a powerful Zamarakian Majara. Palkira died when Kazad was young though, and with his father's fate still to this day unknown, he ended up growing up under the tutelage of Azil. Honestly, not much else is known about Kazad's childhood, or for that matter any Majara, but we have come to understand that under Azil's tutelage he grew up and became quite a powerful Zamarakian warlord, kind of following the traits of Azil himself. Towards the end of the Fourth Age though, Kazad and Azil slowly started to put their plans of domination into the works. Quickly, they managed to take control of much of what is now known as Kandarin. Azil himself actually took control of the northern sector, in what is now known today as Ardone, while Kazad ended up conquering the southern regions, eventually establishing his fight arena as well as taking control of Port Kazad. Together, working in tandem, they quickly dominated much of the local humans, and due to their violent nature, ended up ruling with a dictatorship. Kazad, using his charisma, was able to persuade much of the humans to actually submit to his violent rule. and indeed they became Kazad's army. A violent army, which would play a key part within his future plans. Additionally, those who refused to submit to his actual rule, they were either captured or taken prisoner in his fight arena, with Kazad often forcing them to fight against strange beasts to the death, for seemingly no reason other than for his own amusement, and this still goes on today. But that act of literally taking prisoners from anyone who kind of defies his rule kind of plays multiple roles. One, it may seem that maybe he's just enjoying it for amusement. Indeed, he might actually be doing it. But kind of like a secondary effect of it is Kazad actually managed to force the rest of the humans within the area under his control simply by doing this. It's a simple tactic where basically he controls everybody with fear. Everyone will think, alright, I'll listen to him, I'll go under his rule, I don't want to die to these random beasts he's putting people against in the arena. And additionally, it works for his own subordinates as well. For those who are kind of on edge whether or not they agree with his actual rule, they see this and they see Kazad himself sitting on his chair laughing. They'll then follow the rules. So all in all, it's a pretty clever military tactic. So he's not as stupid as he may first seem. But while this was going on and Kazad was slowly subjugating the southern regions, there was an exiled and very deceitful gnome that you may all know. He goes by the name of Glofri. Well, Glofri had disguised himself using his trademark illusion magics, and actually became the advisor to Bolri, leader of the Tree Gnome village. Glofri, disguised as a spirit advisor, informed Bolri that a dangerous and charismatic warrior known as Kazad had taken control of the humans in the nearby area. Glofri told Bolri that the spirit trees had informed him that Kazad would bring disaster to the gnomes. The fact that King Healthrog of the Tree Gnome stronghold wasn't even doing anything about this simply enraged Bolri, and near instantly claimed that the king was a weak and dying king, becoming blind to the problems of the gnomes. Glofri again decided to suggest that Healthrog's son, Argenthrog, would just follow his father's path if he succeeded him, appeasing humans and letting them take all of their land. The gnome illusionist claimed that if the next king of the Gnome stronghold does not remove the threat of Kazad, the gnomish empire would simply be destroyed. Bolri obviously did not want this, and secretly desired for himself to be crowned the next king. Noticing this, Glofri suggested that by attacking Kazad and the humans while they were still weak, they would be easily defeated. And Bolri, in turn, would become a hero, and indeed win the hearts of all the gnomes, raising his position, claiming that when Healthrog passes on, he would stand for election for king of the Gnome stronghold, ensuring that he had no chance of losing. It was with these sweet silver-tongued words that Bolri attacked General Khazard, and thus began the war which has been raging on ever since between the gnomes of the Tree Gnome village and the Kazad army. Glofri had simply tricked Bolri, and never had any desire at all of helping him. He simply wanted control of the Gnome stronghold, and simply to strengthen the Gnomish empire against its supposed true enemies, which Glofri believed to be humans. When the engineer Eunoch used an anti-illusion device though, and Glofri's real identity was discovered, and he was found to be working for Bolri, albeit without Bolri's knowledge. Immediately, Bolri was exiled and forced to leave in shame. His family also were banished to a cave underneath the Tree Gnome village. With this, he swore that he would destroy Glofri. However, Glofri at the time had actually already left, and he is left to found Abu Sandra. Bolri's brother, King Bolran, took control of the Tree Gnome village. In fact, he erected the maze that is still standing all around it today, basing its design on one of the puzzles Bolri used to draw when he was a child. The Kazad and Gnome War continues to this day, as the maze seems to deter Kazad's forces from assaulting the village. Although Kazad was able to take control of a large area towards the north of the village, which he still to this day uses to send attacks on the gnomish forces. And this war raged on for a long time. In fact, moving on to the start of the 5th Age, although this war is still ongoing, the 5th Age itself saw the discovery of runecrafting and widespread use of magic among the humans. In the 7th year of the 5th Age, a tribe of Saurodominus humans led by Carnelian family had grown tired of the rule of Zeal and Kazad, and they actually took it upon themselves to do something about it. Together with their amassed force, they stormed Haziel's mansion, slaughtering all of the Zamorakians inside. However, Haziel had prepared for this, and had actually hidden a scroll with a ritual to revive him should he ever be defeated within his mansion. When the Saurodominus reached Haziel, they were indeed able to defeat him, but simply being unable to kill him completely. Instead, they could only manage to put him into a state of torpor. The humans took control of much of Haziel's lands, establishing the city of Ardone. However, the strange thing is, Kazad's reaction is kind of unknown, but the Saurodominus was seemingly unable to take control of Kazad's land since he's still there, and I dare say it's in no small part simply for the fact that he has a huge army of Zamorakians. Kazad presumably then must have either been too busy with his conflict against the gnomes to bother reclaiming Ardone or saving Haziel, and instead a small cult of Zamorakians was supposedly tasked with reviving Haziel. Later on in the 5th Age, in the year of 169, Kazad decides to kidnap 2 members of the Serval family, a young squire by the name of Jeremy Serval and a knight by the name of Sir Justin Serval. Kazad had been victimizing the Servals ever since Lady Serval had simply refused to hand over their lands to Kazad. The Lady Serval requests the assistance of a young adventurer in saving her family, and if possible, even defeating Kazad himself. The adventurer is able to infiltrate Kazad's arena using a set of Kazad armor and simply tricking Gerald, one of Kazad's lazy guards. In fact, he even relinquished the keys. The adventurer then decides to infiltrate further and deeper within Kazad's arena, and eventually manages to rescue Jeremy, and heads to the main arena to find Justin, who at the time was actually under dire threat and was being attacked by a deadly scorpion. Jeremy begs the adventurer to save his father, and after the adventurer dispatches the scorpion, General Khazard appears and claims to be impressed. In fact, General Khazard even agrees that he'll let the Servals go, only in return for the adventurer becoming his new fighting slave. The adventurer agrees with this, and after he eventually defeats a large ogre, Khazard decides that he needs a tougher challenge, and releases his pet hellhound, Bouncer. However, after Bouncer is defeated, Khazard becomes enraged, but states that he is not a coward, and keeps his promise of letting the Servals go. However, he does decide that the adventurer has caused him too much trouble, and he will kill him himself. Khazard proceeds to engage with the adventurer, and after being bested in combat once, Khazard regenerates and turns within his giant form, stating that as a Majara, he can't possibly be beaten. However, after being bested a second time, Khazard soon retreats to the Shadow Realm. After retreating into the Shadow Realm, Khazard begins preparing for the next ritual of rejuvenation, an event that occurs every 500 years when the planets align, thereabouts, wherein the Majara sacrifice one of their number in order to rejuvenate the others. Kazad starts out by sending out various scouts to gather intelligence on the other Majara and the state of the world, sending one to the Gnome stronghold to keep a watch on the Gnomes, one to the Caridian desert to keep tabs on Azanadra and Akra Agthanakos, and one to Karamja, and finally another to Falador to keep watch on the White Knights. While wandering the forest south of Religa, Kazad is supposedly approached by an adventurer that had defeated him in combat before. Kazad is impressed that they were able to see into the Shadow Realm, and indeed pretends not to recognize them. He decides to use them to do a task for him instead, but first sends them to Sincere to see if they are trustworthy or not. Upon the adventurer's return, he is very impressed by all of the sins they've committed, and decides he will indeed have a use for them. Kazad sends the adventurer to find his 4 scouts and tell them to return to him, giving them the message that the planets are nearing alignment and to beware his fellow Majara, as although they are weak and they may number little, they are still immensely cunning. After the adventurer completes this task and returns with a message from the scouts, Kazad sends them to a cave near the fishing guild for their reward, but not before giving them a severed leg, which is supposedly the key to their reward. When the adventurer arrives at the cave, they find the ghost of Bouncer, Kazad's old hellhound. They realize that this reward was just a ruse and that Kazad simply tricked them once again, hoping to kill the adventurer once and for all. Bouncer, as soon as seeing the adventurer and the severed leg, attacks him, and a fight ensues. The adventurer, though, is able to defeat Bouncer using the severed leg that Kazad had given them earlier, and in fact uses it to distract Bouncer and then stabs it in the back. A number of years later, the ritual of rejuvenation has proceeded on, and as the time of the ritual drew even nearer, Kazad headed to the ritual site with his army, encountering the adventurer yet again, along with Ali the Wise, Certification, Akrasay, and a battalion of Temple Knights. Kazad is surprised to see Ali there, recognizing him and using a spell to reveal him as the Zerosian Majara Wahisiatal, an old rival of his. Kazad and his troops then proceed to attack the group, with him taking on the adventurer personally, seeking revenge for his prior defeats. However, with the help of Certifi and Wahisiatal, the adventurer is almost able to defeat Kazad. However, rather than be defeated and chosen as a sacrifice, Kazad quickly retreats to heal and prepare for the ritual, teleporting off, much to the group and the adventurer's annoyance. Later on though, as the rest of the Majara slowly begin to arrive at the ritual site, they begin to debate who will be sacrificed. Kazad soon joins them, saying that Wahisiatal should be sacrificed, with the newly revived Haziel agreeing with him. Lucian, being the most powerful Majara there, ignores the demands and simply chooses Jalan instead. Wahisiatal disagrees with this decision, stating that due to the threat he poses, Lucian has to be chosen instead, and a battle breaks out between both of the factions as well as the humans. Kazad and Haziel team up to fight Certifi, Idria, and Akrasay, while the adventurer dealt with Zamorgal zombies. After Zamorgal's control over Arav is broken though, Arav begins to attack Zamorgal, much to the necromancer's horror, as he is not able to deal with both Azanadra as well as Arav at the same time. Zamorgal begs Lucian for help. However, Lucian simply ignores him. Seeing this, Zamorgal becomes enraged, demanding that everyone attack Lucian, claiming that Wahisiatal was right and Lucian should be indeed sacrificed. Everyone, heeding Zamorgal's advice, proceed to attack Lucian, along with every other Majara there. Lucian demands that the fighting stop shortly after this turn of events, and quickly sacrifices Jalan, rejuvenating the Majara, including Kazad, filling them once again with more strength. After Lucian summons the Stone of Jazz though, a trio of Dragonkin appear and he is killed by them after a brief skirmish. A terrified Kazad watching the scene makes a quick excuse about having matters to attend to, and immediately teleports away to avoid being killed. Returning once more to his fight arena, despite his rejuvenation, he continues to walk around in his skeletal form to better strike fear into both the enemy and his own army. A few years after the 18th ritual of rejuvenation, freneskae decides to announce his grand ascendancy, during which freneskae claims that he'll be reaching godhood. Kazad and the other Zamorakians travel to the Citadel, along with the Zarozha Majara and many others, simply not wishing for the ascension to take place. However, they were barred from entry into the main building by freneskae's Barrow-wights, who only would allow gods inside. Zamorgul did indeed make an attempt to get in, but it was simply thwarted, so everyone else present there, who was not a god, simply stood by, waiting for the outcome. One other thing worthy of note is the fact that Kazad, and in fact the Majara following Zamorak in general, did not participate within the Battle of Lumbridge, which took place over a 10-week period. It actually resulted in the loss for Zamorak, and due to this, Zamorak has threatened to denounce the Zamorakian Majara, which supposedly at this time has them very riled up. They are greatly angry. So, what the Zamorakian Majara will be tasked with, or simply even do next, is very much up in the air. And that's pretty much it. That is General Khazard for you. That is his history. Not much is known about him in his childhood, but all in all, he's achieved quite a lot during his lifetime, especially compared to some of the other Majara. I mean, he grew up, he learned all of his powers and strength from Hazil himself, and indeed became fairly proficient in melee weapons, which is another thing worthy of note with Kazad. Many Majara, in fact the vast majority of them, kind of use magic as their primary mode of attack. It's their strongest ability, and that's what they use. Kazad, however, actually uses melee combat instead, and kind of uses magic as a backup or secondary, which is fairly interesting and kind of unique among the Majara. Other than that, with himself teaming up with Hazil later on in life once he's become strong enough, they ended up conquering the entirety of Kandarin, near enough. Hazil taking possession of the northern section, and Kazad taking possession of the southern. Whether or not this caused some friction between the two, since Hazil was eventually defeated and put into a state of near death, and Kazad, from what we know, or at least what it seems, did nothing. Maybe they are on good terms, maybe they're not. Either way, General Khazard used his brain and subjugated the entire people of the region, and eventually built up a large army. And through dictatorship, ruled by fear, that army was then sent to wage war against the Gnomes, after being declared against, and that war is still ongoing, so perhaps we may soon see a victor between the two. Who knows? But with that said, that is everything. I hope you all enjoyed. Until next time, I will catch you all later. Have a good one.